Well, it's wonderful to be here with you today, Neri. I have admired your work for some time from afar, and of course, inspired by your own personal journey from being a refugee all the way through to being a highly successful entrepreneur, now author of the book, which I have right here for those of you who can see it on screen, Pioneers, the name of yourself, as well as the people you've interviewed, 8 Principles of Business Longevity from Immigrant Entrepreneurs. And of course, we're going to dive into the book and all your work around that to take out the lessons for people who are entrepreneurs, for people who are intrapreneurs in organizations too, and obviously get to know you and hear a bit more about your own journey too. So, but before I do, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. It's really, the feeling is mutual. We never really met in person, but I've admired your work as well. And it's truly an honor that you invited me to the podcast.
Oh, that's very kind. I'm looking forward to seeing you later on this year at the time of this recording. So, I mean, you talk about these 8 principles. There's a lot in the book. There's some compelling and very moving stories. You're a great storyteller. Out of the 8, just pick out one that you think listeners and viewers should grab hold of and start learning about. What would be the one you'd select?
There's many. I think it's quite hard to pick just one, but I'm torn between picking reframing and community, because I think one thing that immigrant entrepreneurs do very well is that they are able to reframe their past, their rejections, the failures that happen to them. And they don't view rejection, failure, and they don't even hear the word no the way that we do. So for me, that was quite an interesting part. And even the so-called failures or rejections to them do not register the same way. And it doesn't mean they are immune to it. It doesn't mean there is a deliberate thing that they do. But it's almost like they have, in some ways, no other choice but to reframe their past, to reframe the rejection and failure, because there is a tremendous will in them to keep going. But they are only able to do that. What allows them this superpower is that they rely on other people. It's their community. And I think now that you've read the book, you will notice all the principles are actually very much interconnected.
Yes.
So it was quite an interesting thing for me as well, as a researcher, as an author. As I stepped back and looked at it, I thought, wow, they all inform each other. And if you take one, it's like a piece of a puzzle. It's very hard for the other ones to function. So I think reframing community, and then you can't be strong and resilient and successful without the help of other people. I
agree with that.
So I would say that.
It's amazing you say that about reframing failure, because I remember some conversations with some of my friends of my father-in-law in Kenya, where they live, and they are all entrepreneurs, some very successful, and they would just talk openly about failure. In a way that, I mean, yes, they've been successful, but they had real failures, like nearly going bankrupt, and so forth, in a way that was not bragging, but was just very open, and quite a counter to how I've experienced failure, both myself and talking about failure in companies where, yes, there may be books on it, but frankly, you don't want to have too many of them. You don't want to talk about it, because actually people tend to pigeonhole you as, oh, you've had a failure, you can't be successful again. So I'm struck by that reframing point. You talked about keeping going. How do they, yes, they use their community, but how do they keep that positive mindset? Is it because of fear of survival? Is it they have a deep sense of purpose? What is it? What's the engine that keeps them going and keeps them reframing even when they have failures?
It's all of them. It's really all of them, because they do have a will to survive. Like I said they almost have no option. But I think it's a better, more sophisticated way to say that. They have a very clear vision, first of all, and they know what they want to achieve, and that sometimes it's informed by, not sometimes, but that vision is informed by their past, and it gives them a very clear vision to what they want to achieve, where they want to get to. So there is this very unshakable vision that they hold on to. And despite the failures, they know that that failure is actually leading them to the vision that they have. So as I'm talking to you, I'm reminded of Tope Avotona, the founder of Calendly. He had many failures, and he witnessed his father being gunned down in Nigeria. When he's a middle school student, he immigrates to US with his mom, and his father used to be an entrepreneur, and he always wanted to be one. So even during summer vacations, he will sell these products door to door, make some money, which gave him the taste of being an entrepreneur. But then many of the businesses that he started failed. However, during his interviews, he doesn't say, I failed, he doesn't use the word, I failed, this was a bad thing that happened, but instead he says, all of that led me to Calendly. So his vision of wanting to be an entrepreneur, to prove himself in some sense, worked eventually, but the path to that wasn't this very straightforward path. It had many obstacles, many detours, but they have optimism, not in a toxic way. Because that vision that they have about their life, about their business and themselves keeps them going. And I think that's a very important element in this.
Yes. Is that longer term perspective, that feeling of longevity in a world that often feels very short term, i.e., have a try for 6 months, you've got to make a lot of money or whatever your measure of success is. Yet the entrepreneurs you've described play a very long term game, and have that vision without it being stubborn. How do they, as well as community, how do they nurture themselves through the ups and downs of that journey? How do they create the fuel to keep going?
I think, I don't think they start off with the idea that this is going to be easy. So they know that, so this is a very important point as well. They are not expected things to be easy, and they are not in it to make a quick buck and get in and get out. They are very much driven by the fact that they want their lives to have a meaning. They are not driven even by the fact, one of the things that surprised me, in leadership as well, like even in entrepreneurship, even when you watch a movie, there will be this center hero in the story. But when I was talking to immigrant entrepreneurs, they never saw themselves as the hero in the story. They weren't in the center trying to make this exceptional business happen, but rather it was about other people. How can I create this business that will benefit others? What is the value that I am bringing here? What is different about my work, my business? What impact can I achieve? And it's not so much about them, and it's not so much about the fact that this entrepreneurship journey is going to be an easy one or a fast one. The results are not going to be fast, and they don't expect, even like when I was talking to many of them, they don't expect it to be easy. And in many of their cases, life has not been easy for them. They come from...
No. So that frames the way they think about the journey. I'm going to be challenging just for one moment. I do this in these conversations in a very positive, constructive way. I love the fact that you described the people you met as focusing on, if you like, their impact on others and what they contribute to the world around them. That's wonderful to hear. I've seen that, experienced it myself from immigrant entrepreneurs. I've also come across quite a few who may say that, but their actions are very much about themselves. And actually underneath the PR, the story, there's a high degree of ego and some other personality traits, some of which are positive, some of which are slightly toxic. So I guess if I was being challenging, I'd ask you the question, which is, I hear that story, and in your experience, is it always true? Or are they actually more egotistical?
Very good question. Very good question. I think the distinction, obviously, not all immigrant entrepreneurs are going to fit the mold of what I'm describing in the book. Every study has its limitations, and of course mine does as well. And today, we do have immigrant entrepreneurs who are acting in a way that doesn't fit with any of the principles that I'm describing in the book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names. But
go on, please. No, go on. I'm joking.
But yes, they do exist. However, if we are truly talking about, again, what I am talking about is business longevity, its impact. And those who are egotistical and are thinking about lining up their pockets or fast results are obviously not going to have a business of impact. And that's the point I'm making here. And the people that we are, again, I'm not going to name names, but those who didn't follow those principles, or those who have become much more egotistical and driven by ego, unfortunately, at some point, I'm not saying it will happen today, but at some point, they are going to, unfortunately, face the consequences of their actions. And again, David, I think I talk a lot about business longevity, about impact, and I know even me, I watch the news and I think to myself, recently I was discussing this with Ayşe Birsel. I said, is this like, we were discussing the news, everything that we talk about, it's the opposite that they are doing. And these people seem to be running countries, they seem to be running corporations that are going to make an impact in today's world. And have I gotten this wrong? But in my heart, I know that this is not sustainable. The world of...
Yeah. We hope it's just a blip. We hope it's a period in time which will hopefully we will be able to move on from quite quickly. Let me just continue that theme, because I'm conscious that particularly immigrant entrepreneurs have to overcome many, many barriers in not only living a life in a new or different country, but also then building a business, whether that's the cultural, language, financial, and so on. Again, I'm curious about mindset and actual practices as well. How did they both be true to themselves and their heritage and overcome some of these barriers so they could make an impact in the new country, the new market, the new region they're living in? How did they do that?
Actually, very interesting question, because in some sense, this also allows them, it's an incredible resource and capability. The fact that they come from a different culture, they are true to their values. We are not talking here about not assimilating to the culture, but they tend to blend the two cultures. And in my book, I talk about cross-cultural bridging. And there's countless examples of immigrant entrepreneurs who were able to build billion-dollar businesses because of that capability. Chobani is a great example. Dominique Ansel, another example. Dermalogica. These people have been able to come to a new country and then realize that become a bridge between two cultures and almost come up with a product or service that is highly unique, but it's a blend of two cultures. So this so-called constraint is their superpower. It's their biggest strength.
Yeah, it's reframing, it's flipping it as a source of advantage and opportunity. And I guess they also think of customers in a different way from, if you like, again, one of the myths you challenge, which, you need lots and lots and lots of customers. And of course, who wouldn't want that? But actually, you need profitable customers, you need loyal customers. Tell me a bit more about that
Absolutely.
theme.
It's one of the myths I talk about, because in business, in order for your business to grow, you need to sell to as many people as possible. You need many customers. But what I've seen is that you need sometimes one or two customers. And even with one or two customers, your business can become highly successful. And this was the case with us when we were starting our own business. And in the book, I start to talk about that, because I say when we were building our business, I realized many of the things that are not many, but the things that are in business books didn't exactly fit our business.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to, build a business only with one distributor at the time. And eventually it grew from there. Chobani, I will give him again as an example. When he first created his product, he actually brought Chobani the yogurt to one store only, one tiny store. And the next day, the guy called him and said, I don't know what you are putting in this yogurt, and I don't want to know, but it's flying off the shelves. And then the rest is history. But you need that loyalty. And if the product is a very good one, and if you nurture your relationship, even with one customer that you have, this is just one step. And often we think of business as something like doing this grand gesture, doing these bold moves. But in reality, it's one step at a time.
I remember my work, I've done a lot of work in the media sector, and a lot of people focus on distribution. And of course, distribution matters, of course. But often organizations forget about the quality of what you described there, the product, or in that case, the program. If you don't have a great quality product, then actually it's hard to build something. And I guess you whether you call it a product or an idea, you really also double down in the book on really getting to the heart of a quality, integrity of what you're trying to offer. So tell me a bit more about why that's so important, because I guess we know it we know it intuitively, but again, we probably, scrimp and save, we take shortcuts because we think, hey, there's a market out there. Let's get as much of this shipped out to the market and let's see what sticks. Whereas you counter that by saying, look, it's the quality of the idea, quality of the product that really matters.
Absolutely. And this is like with every single entrepreneur I interviewed, including in our lives. The product, the quality, they are obsessed with quality. They are obsessed with not getting it right, but just the integrity. They have to stand behind what they are selling. And what they are selling, yes, it's about performance. It's the utmost highest quality, but at the same time, it has to be something that the customers is going to want. I will give you an example. Numity. I interviewed the founders. They are Iraqi American, brother and sister. They immigrated to US, and today they have the world's largest fair trade company. But when they were first building their business, the brother will call up the FDA in US, and at the time there was no internet like there is today. He will take the yellow book, and try to find the number of the person, call until he gets someone on the phone and ask him about the tea bags, the requirements of the tea bags, what has to go inside that tea. And the guy basically said to him at the FDA, why are you asking me these questions? There is just nobody has ever thought to ask these questions. Like, people just sell tea. So
that's it. That's that attention to detail, isn't
it? Really.
I'm conscious. You yourself are and have been a successful entrepreneur, an immigrant entrepreneur, originally coming from Bulgaria, and obviously then moving to Turkey and having your fashion label. So you all had your own experiences and practices you've been using very successfully. As you've been interviewing these other immigrant entrepreneurs, what were the one or two moments in your research where you literally stopped in your tracks, said, wow, I've never thought of the topic, the issue, the situation in that way? What were the aha moments, the really big aha moments for you from those interviews?
I think I alluded to it earlier. The biggest aha for me was, that it wasn't about them. And this has been something that it really changed how I also view life after those interviews, because it was never about them. And in life, we even, even in our own line of work, David, we do consultancy, we have clients, we do Thinkers 50, and it's very easy to think of ourselves as the person in the middle, the person, this is all dependent on us. It's about us. And I think we do it. It's human nature. And I do it as well. But then if I strip everything back, it is never about you. I think if this is one thing that I realized, it's not about you per se. And the second you take yourself out of the equation and you think of your employees, of what the value that you are bringing, we are just a vessel. We are just a vessel that this business happens through, that this conversation happens through, that even our writing happens through. We are not this just, egocentric person in the middle, the hero. And I think this is, and it's not that they told it to me directly during my interviews, but this is the conclusion I come to at the very end of it. Because, and I'm not saying all the entrepreneurs I interviewed are these saints who never think of themselves as the hero or the person at the center. But for me, if we change our perspective by thinking that we are simply the vessel, and yes, you can have a very successful business, you can do your consultancy, you can do your public speaking, but it's like take yourself out of the equation. And even when we are doing the public speaking, let the words come through you. Like if I even give that as an example. So that has been quite transformational for me.
Say more about that, because I'm curious. I mean, that's a very powerful, very moving realization. How has that day-to-day changed the way you do your work in your various roles?
Well, I started to, and I'm not saying I'm doing it very well, by the way, but at least there is the realization there. Even when we do LinkedIn posts, I can give you that as an example. And today LinkedIn has become like the place. I am so humbled and honored I got this recognition, and I have to watch for that too, because it's very easy to do it. But I think when whatever you do, if you just think of what value you are bringing to the readers, to people who listen to you, to people who come to that room. And I try I'm mindful, much more mindful of that. So I gave a talk very recently. For me, I had to ask myself, what will the audience get? And my intention is I want to be an inspiration. And holding on to that intention, I wrote my speech based on that. But it wasn't about Neri doing a speech. Of course, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. Doesn't mean I'm not incredibly honored to be in that room. I mean, it's exceptional thing that is happening. But just thinking of the other people. And again, I have not been like this in my life. Because because of my background, I'm a refugee, I've been very driven by achievement and the accolades that I will get. And now almost, as I'm getting older, I would say I'm getting wiser as well. And making these changes and having these realizations has been an important one for me.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm curious about how entrepreneurs, maybe including yourself, how you manage the impacts of your dedication, your commitment, your work on those around you, particularly loved ones. And what I mean specifically is, I think nearly all of the entrepreneurs I know work incredibly long hours. It becomes a lifestyle, which basically means it's not 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It's a long hours, long intensity role. And that comes with some sacrifices in terms of whether it's family or friends. And I know a number of people where the others are just used to it. Oh, we don't expect to see them much of the weekend. We expect them to travel, we expect them and so forth. But I wonder how they or you have dealt with the sacrifices involved? Because they are real, aren't they? I mean, these are real, tangible impacts on others. You can't have it all.
Yes. So very good question. I think I had to make some decisions myself. So it's for sure you can't have it all. Truer words were never spoken, because there is no such thing as a balance, where you are like this incredible husband, wife, exceptional entrepreneur, having everything go your way. It doesn't work like that. So for me, a few years ago, after I met my husband and we decided to build our family, to get married, I also made the decision to have my family run the Neri Karra business, our leather products business. So for me, it meant, and it was a very clear decision. I didn't want, and it wasn't going to be practical anyway for me to keep going back to Turkey, to travel to Italy. The life that I led when I was a single person, unattached person, is very different when I form a family. And I wanted to, and then I also decided to quit being an associate professor full-time, and I was on the way to a promotion. But again, I didn't like being away from my son, who at the time was less than a year old. I really didn't like the fact that a nanny was taking care of him when I was upstairs on a Zoom call giving a lecture on business strategy. So again, and this is when I discovered Dory Clark and Recognized Expert Group, because I was reinventing myself and what I wanted my life to look like. So definitely I made sacrifices, but those were sacrifices that I wanted to make. And I wanted to create a life that I'm living now, which is working remotely, doing something I'm very much passionate about. I wrote a book that, sometimes they ask me, what do you want the book to be? I haven't really thought about it. Of course I have, but there wasn't this strategy behind it. It was more about, I really believe in this, and this is my life's work.
It's very powerful that you've clearly made some, well, I wouldn't say difficult, but important decisions in your life, and giving up some lucrative, money-wise, prestige-wise role things for things that for you are more important in terms of building the family, the space and flexibility. So I take my hat off to you. I guess I also know a number of entrepreneurs who are much older, who have generated a lot of impact in the way you described, are inspirational people in one aspect of their life, but in those quiet moments, I've spoken to them, have a tinge of regret in terms of, well, I miss my kids growing up. Yes, they went to the best schools. Yes, they flew around the world on wonderful holidays and they're doing great jobs, but I had 10 years when I frankly wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to criticize them, but I'm here to call out the fact that there are real trade-offs that you have to consider. And success is a very personal endeavor, but a very personal definition. But impact is not just monetary impact from a business.
Yeah.
Impact is much wider. And success is much wider than that, isn't it?
Very true. It reminds me, David, of Isaac Larian. He's the founder of MG Entertainment. I don't know if you know, he created Bratz dolls, and he went into this years-long, hundreds of millions dollars lawsuits with Mattel, the creator of Barbie. They sued him.
Yes.
And because it was the direct challenger to Barbie, and they basically said the person you created Bratz with worked for us at some point, so basically, they sued him, and this lawsuit took him away, and he's very open and vocal about this. And he does say, it took me away from my family, it took me away from my son, from my children. I haven't been able to, it impacted my health, my well-being. And he says, yes, I won the lawsuit. I fought it, but the sacrifice was a great one.
Yeah, wasn't worth it. Yeah. It was interesting preparing for this conversation. I was both stimulated by the topics and the content and inspired by the stories you shared and your story, most specifically. I was also a bit uncomfortable, not with you, but myself, because on some visible outward measures, I'm privileged. I'm not an immigrant. I'm a white middle-class male, as people remind me more than they should. I didn't go to a private school. I went to a non-selective comprehensive school. My parents were not wealthy. So in my eyes, I'm far, far less privileged than many of the people in my previous firm who did go to those schools and so forth. But my journey has been so much easier than yours by many, many folds. If you are speaking to listeners who are similar to me and not feeling uncomfortable necessarily, although they may do, but frankly have had an easier ride, what's your message to them from the book?
First, I don't think, in my opinion, you go through life unscathed. Everyone has challenges. Some of us become immigrants, some of us lose parents at a very young age, some of us become parents and find it very difficult. Some of us lose jobs. You name it. Life is not easy. And I wouldn't wish on anyone actually to be a refugee, it's not that I wouldn't wish it, but what I'm, I guess, trying to say, we all have our challenges. And in the book I say, in some sense, I will say we are all immigrants, because even changing jobs, losing a parent, becoming a parent, and you name it, it's every new experience in a way feels like an immigration, because it's a new territory. That's what I would first say. And second, I'm married to someone who is American, and he also, when I first visited his family, I thought, wow, I was pleasantly surprised and happy, because I thought, wow, it means life can also feel easy and be easy. And because of my own family, we've always had such challenges and very disruptive things happen in our family, that when I saw his family, it gave me inspiration actually. And that life can be easy and good, and it
doesn't have to be hard.
Exactly.
That's that point there. So it just really struck a chord, because as I guess my specific challenges, I have a son who's severely disabled, and it is easy in our mindsets, both my wife and myself, of not looking for hard things, but being used to hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I can tell you, beginning before this call, it was very hard. But at the same time, when things are easier or better, actually learning to stop and enjoy them and just saying, this is good.
Yes.
Because you forget, or at least you don't look out for it. You don't look out for it. But I want to dive more into this. I mean, this is brilliant wisdom. I mean, this is very moving as well. A bit of a quick fire round now, just to change the tone and the tempo of this. And no caveats, no criticisms or anything. So what is your biggest superpower as a person?
My relentless optimism.
Okay. And your biggest weakness?
I get overwhelmed very easily.
Okay. And you've talked about this before, but what is the impact you're looking to have on the world around you?
To inspire people. That's the impact I would like to have. I want to inspire others.
To do?
To live their best life, to become the best version of themselves that they can be.
That's excellent. And when you're having your best day, everything's going in flow, you're thinking, ideas are just coming from my brain, words are just eloquently spoken, it's just beautiful. What are the ingredients that really help you?
I have a morning practice. So I will start it off with what I call, it's not my practice. It was from Julia Cameron, morning pages. I will wake up and I immediately start writing whatever is in my head. It can be 5 to 10 minutes, but it's almost like equivalent to brushing my teeth. And then after that, 10 minutes of gratitude meditation and listing everything in my head. What I'm grateful for. And that starts off my day on a good note.
That's wonderful. How do you end the day? How do you end the day well?
I end the day well by first checking on my son, seeing him sleep peacefully and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, he looks so peaceful when he's sleeping. So that's
Yes. Know that feeling. Wonderful. Look, you've given a taste, I should say, of your own journey, your research, and called out perhaps some different angles that people may not have heard as much. But I encourage people to read your work, to buy the book, of course, to ask you to be a speaker, to be a consultant, and all the different roles you do. Where can they find out more about you and your work online, should they wish to?
Sure. I actually just have a new website. So it's www.nerikarrasillaman.com. Also, it's the same website to nerispeaks.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Neri Karra Sillaman, and I have a Instagram page as well, Prof. Neri. So those places.
Wonderful, wonderful. I have a hunch that there's a lot more to come in new and different and varied roles. This is one chapter of your life, and you're clearly living it fully and wisely and lovingly and everything else. I just have a hunch there's a lot more to come, and I can't wait to see it and obviously meet you in person. Neri, thank you ever so much again.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And that was another edition of Lancefield on the Line. I do hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please do check out the other episodes in this series. Sign up to the YouTube channel, to the podcast. If you're feeling especially generous, give us a 5-star rating. And Neri, thank you ever so much again.